All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us here this afternoon. It was on February 24th that Russia launched its unprovoked attack on Ukraine and has caused enormous suffering in the country. And Ukraine has put out calls for help to be able to fight off this aggression. And so we here in the state of Nebraska have said that we support Ukraine in resisting this unprovoked attack and want to look to see how we can help the people of Ukraine. And so with me today, I've got a number of folks from state government. I'm joined by Captain Jason Scott, who is the commander of the Special Operations Unit for the Nebraska State Patrol. Joined by Rick Dahlman, who is the Deputy Director for the Nebraska Military Department, and then John Selmer, who is the Director of the Department of Transportation. And working in conjunction with the state of Iowa, we have worked to collect protective equipment for folks in Ukraine. So we've been able to get the word out to law enforcement agencies to be able to give us their expired body armor, you know, those vests, and Kevlar helmets that we could then pool together and work with the state of Iowa to send to Ukraine. Ukraine has asked for help with regard to body armor and helmets, and so we have units that are expired, so they're past their warranty and they're no longer usable by law enforcement because they are expired, but functionally they still work and they'll still provide protection. And so we put out the call last week for law enforcement agencies to be able to provide that. We worked together to be able to collect all that and then palletized it. We got 4 pallets. We've been able to collect 550 pieces of protective equipment, including 321 body armor vests and 69 helmets. And then we worked with Iowa to pool that with theirs, and they loaded that all on a plane today that will be headed to Ukraine, working with the Ukrainian consulate to be able to make sure that arrives to the people who will be able to help do it. So this is part of how we in Nebraska are providing material help to Ukrainians to be able to fight off this aggression. This is something that is absolutely just unprovoked, and Putin has disturbed started what has become just the worst refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, and obviously overturned the whole world peace that we've had since World War II with regard to that. Millions of people have been displaced, including 4 million people who have left Ukraine. And so we want to help the people of Ukraine fight this aggression, and that's why the state of Nebraska is pulling together this expired body armor to help do that in Ukraine. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rick Dahlman, who's going to talk a little bit about what the Nebraska Military Department did, and then we'll also have Jason Scott and then John Selmer talk about their roles in it. So with that, Rick.
Thank you, Governor, for the chance to help with this important support for Ukraine. It was just a short time ago that the California Military Department reached out to our director, Major General Bohack, to approach you, Governor, on a state agency effort for the Ukrainian relief. California and Ukraine are in a 25-year relationship where they share military training a little bit, build relationships, and a good, peaceful type of effort between the nations. But they were asking for something a little bit different this time. They asked if the Adjutant General of California would talk to other states and see if on a state level, on a non-federal level, would governors be willing to pitch in and help. In Ukraine, body armor and helmets are the most requested thing, and the idea that local law enforcement may have some access to donate was thrown around. General Bohack discussed with Governor Ricketts, who fully supported the effort, and contacted the Nebraska State Patrol. Colonel Bolduc spearheaded the next effort with law enforcement agencies around the state, collecting and transporting stuff to Lincoln. And Captain Scott will talk more about that in a minute. The Nebraska Military Department did a small role, but we just connected the dots between the teammates, the fellow state agencies, to coordinate this. So the State Patrol continued to provide details of the amount of equipment they would bring in. This really started about last Wednesday when we started to get the word that that may happen and that transportation may be available. So it was fast moving from the west to the east, equipment moving through the state troop areas. So we got updates on those. I talked to the Department of Administrative Services and their supply division. They provided some airworthy boxes, and we kept count of those and monitored the equipment as it came in. Department of Administrative Services also provided some legal documentation, ways to get up there and access the property, which is so important, dealing with the consulate and also with Iowa, trying to get these boxes loaded and the right type of equipment. We had to separate some things, and they did a great job, Patrol and Administrative Services. And then Department of Transportation, in a moment's notice, provided a truck, a driver, and we'll talk to them several times a day about when they can pick it up and how we can best do this. And so in 2 different locations, Patrol gathered all that. DAS helped to manage the administrative part of it. We had it loaded all up. They brought some folks in on a Saturday, and with smiles on their face, we're ready to go Monday. And so yesterday, Department of Transportation loaded that up, and they took that over to Iowa, their Department of Public Safety, where today the Department of Iowa Transportation transported that we talked about. So 100% state effort, fully supported with great attitudes among our teammates, Governor. So shout out really to the State Patrol, DAS, Nebraska Department of Transportation, and our Iowa teammates for cooperating to get this done and following your intent to help the Ukrainian crisis. So thank you for the opportunity. I'll be followed by Captain Peters. Scott.
Thank you, Director Dahlman. I think like everyone else, we've seen the images coming out of Ukraine over the last month and have been inspired by the Ukrainian people and how they are fighting. When the governor came to us at the State Patrol with the opportunity, our teams across the entire state were very eager to help. This is a fast developing effort, and teamwork from every organization was on full display. We really need to thank the Nebraska Sheriff's Association along with the Police Chiefs Association of Nebraska for their leadership in getting the word out to local agencies across the state in a short amount of time. We had many local agencies bringing vests to our local troop area offices. Those agencies brought a total of 284 body armor vests, 87 small armor plates, and 45 vest carriers. NSP was proud to add 37 of our own body armor vests, 20 vest carriers, 8 non-body armor police vest covers, and 69 Kevlar helmets. That brought the statewide total to 550 pieces of equipment that Nebraska law enforcement agencies are sending to Ukraine. These pieces of equipment are all out of warranty and are expired, as was mentioned earlier. It means they can no longer be used in the United States, but they're very serviceable and still functional to make a huge difference in what's going on in Ukraine and defending their country. Once we get everything collected and boxed up, we were glad to hand it off to our partners at the National Guard so that they could get everything where it needed to go. As I said before, this really was a tremendous team effort, not only including our statewide partner agencies, but also numerous law enforcement agencies across the state and the Nebraska Sheriff's Association and the Police Chiefs Association of Nebraska. I'd like to now turn it over to Director Selmer. Director?
Thank you, Jason. As you probably can infer for those that spoke before me, there was significant coordination that occurred at a quick time frame by state and local agencies and partners. And when this was required just for us to be successful and have a timely response to the urgent need that we're here to talk about today. We became aware last week around Thursday of the need for helping in transportation of the protective equipment. We always welcome these types of opportunities, but we also regret that is due to tragic circumstances that the country of Ukraine and its people are facing today. While this is not typical or a core function of the Department of Transportation, we understand our role and responsibility to provide assistance and resources under unique circumstances. We provided similar types of responses in terms of disaster response, floods, tornadoes, and even within the COVID pandemic in terms of delivering unique laboratory equipment to test for COVID. Our role in this effort was actually very easy because of all the efforts that occurred before us. We were the ones that, in a sense, to close the loop, at least for Nebraska, and deliver the protective equipment. Steve Biltoff from our operations division was the driver. He took off yesterday morning at 6 a.m. to make sure that it met the schedule in Iowa and ultimately to get onto the plane and get to Ukraine. He's an interesting individual in that anytime there's situations like this, he's the first to volunteer for that. These products were delivered to the Iowa DOT at Camp Dodge, just in Des Moines, mid-morning yesterday. And for me, personally, it was great to be able to have involvement with this. One aspect is working with the Iowa DOT. I spent 30 years of my career as a professional within the Iowa DOT, and I see Orest here, so he's aware of that. So Orest and I go way back for a while at the Iowa DOT and being a member there for 30 years. And my hope is that there can be future collaboration such as this within our own state and with the Iowa DOT and with the state of Iowa, but hopefully under better circumstances. And with that, I give it back to you, Governor.
Well, again, I'd like to thank our teammates who worked so hard to pull this together in a very short period of time, as well as all the law enforcement agencies. We talked about the different police departments, the sheriff's departments, even individual officers donated their body armor or helmets as part of this overall effort. And I appreciate the collaboration of all the teammates here at the state of Nebraska to be able to help make this happen. As was mentioned, while these pieces of protective equipment are expired and can't be used because of warranty reasons here in Nebraska, Ukrainians will put good use to them in their home country. So we're very pleased to be able to help out with that regard. And I also want to thank Kim Reynolds of Iowa for working together with us to be able to pull together the transportation to be able to make sure it could get used as quickly as possible. We also have members of the Assumption Ukrainian Church with us here today to talk about the human side of this. Because of this attack that's gone on for over a month now, there's been tremendous human cost. I mentioned the number of people who are displaced. We've seen it with missile and artillery attacks on hospitals and schools and apartment high-rises. The casualties, civilian casualties, are estimated to be 3,039 as of the end of day on March 28th. And so we've just seen a terrible human cost. And that human cost is not just in Ukraine, it impacts us here in Nebraska as well. One of the folks that we have here today is a third grader, Lexi Foronko, who is going to say a few words. Her grandparents, all four of them, are in Ukraine right now. So Lexi, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Okay.
All right, do we have a step stool so Lexi will be able to see here? All right, Lexi, you're on. Go ahead.
So I'm really sad that my parents are in Ukraine right now because they can die, and I really don't want them to.
Have you been able to talk to your grandparents?
Yes,
And what do they say when you talk to them?
I forgot.
Are they scared over there too?
Yes,
Yeah. So they're scared over there too, and they're making you scared over here, right?
yes.
Yeah. So what would you like to say to Nebraskans about what's going on in Ukraine with Russia invading?
I just want to say if people can help Ukraine.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lexi. I appreciate you coming and bringing that message because that's what we want to do. We want to help the people of Ukraine, especially your grandparents, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Slava Ukraini.
Good job, Lexi. All right. I'm actually going to move. Oh, thank you, Captain. We have a number of ways to be able to, for Nebraskans to be able to help Ukraine. The first thing I'd ask Nebraskans to do is pray. Pray for the people of Ukraine, that they continue to show this heroic resistance that's inspiring the free world. In addition to that, we can make contributions to help out. The need there is great. Whether the need is for first aid kits, other necessities of life, baby formula, all those things are in short supply with the war disrupting that. Obviously, rails are impassable, roads, bridges, as we mentioned already with regard to the attacks on the cities by the Russian artillery and missile fire. All that's making it difficult to get these necessities. So the need is great, and so Nebraskans can pitch in by contributing to some of the nonprofits out there that are working on that. And I do have a list of those nonprofits. These are humanitarian organizations: Direct Relief, Global Empowerment Mission, the Red Cross, International Medical Corps, Jewish Federation of Omaha, Revived Soldiers Ukraine, Save the Children Federation, Send Relief Inc., the Jesuits, World Central Kitchen, Samaritan Purse, Convoy of Hope, Feed My Starving Children, and Executive Travel, based out of Lincoln, Nebraska, has launched an Operation Safe Harbor Ukraine to help refugees fleeing the war. And on that note, at my request, the Department of Health and Human Services have reached out to the referral partners to let them know we'd like to provide any assistance we can with regard to any Ukrainian refugees that are looking to come to this country. We'd be happy to welcome them here in Nebraska. Nebraska has always been a welcoming state, and we certainly accommodate any Ukrainians who want to come to our state. As I mentioned, we also have Assumption Ukrainian Church here, and Orsis, do you want to come up and just say a few words about how people can reach out to your organization to be able to help as well?
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We really appreciate the support, and we do have a website for the Assumption BVM Ukrainian Catholic Church where you can make donations, and as we get information of new ways to help, that will be posted there too. The website is ukrainiancatholicbvm.org, and so you can go on there. There are ways to donate through Venmo there as well, so you can donate to the effort, and so we appreciate that. And there's opportunities. There's I'm sure you've seen around both Omaha and Lincoln weekly rallies, people coming out and showing their support for Ukraine, and that we've understood from people back in Ukraine is very important as kind of a moral uplift for them as well. But prayers and monetary donations, and of course we really appreciate the body armor and protective equipment, and we've gotten a lot of support from the community, so we really appreciate that. You know, it's a lot like France helping out the colonists in our own American Revolution with logistical things, with weapons and with equipment and so forth, when the United States was fighting for freedom against a much larger imperial power. And so Ukrainians are kind of in that same position now, and it's great that you know, we're doing the same thing there, so we really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's a great analogy to how France helped out the United States in our war for independence. And Ukraine is very much in a war for their independence right now. So to the extent that we can help out, it's, you know, we should look for additional ways to keep doing that. Another way we could do that is by becoming energy independent here again, increasing our energy output so that we could sell energy to our friends in places like Europe rather than buying it from our enemies. All right, so with that, why don't we, I think I checked off all the things that we're supposed to cover here today. So we'll go ahead and open up to questions and answers. And we'll, as always, stay on this topic for the moment and then move on to other topics as we expire those. Grant.
So what happens to this gear, what normally happens this year if it wouldn't have been going to Ukraine? And then also, was there any federal involvement in this, or is it purely between the state and Ukraine?
So Grant's question was, what would normally happen to this equipment that's expired? And was there any federal involvement in this? And I'll answer the second part. No, there was no federal. This is entirely a state effort, working with the state of Iowa in this case to be able to do this. So this was a state effort, not a federal effort. But with that, Captain Scott, you want to talk about what law enforcement agencies typically do with this expired equipment?
I can. Yes, sir. So typically expired body armor, we've mentioned it a couple times, it's expired, but it's still very functional. But from the United States perspective, legal issues, things like that, we normally have that stuff destroyed at an expense of our own agency. And this is an opportunity, which is another reason we're not sitting on enormous stockpiles of expired body armor. So normally it's destroyed through companies who specialize in destroying armor.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah.
Do you have an estimate of when the equipment will arrive in Ukraine?
The question was, do we have an estimate of when that would arrive in Ukraine? I don't have an estimate right now. I don't know. John, did they say anything to you about it? My understanding is it was being loaded on a plane today, but I think for security purposes, they were not being specific about when the plane was leaving, where it was landing, and what time it was landing to be able to protect the security. We want to, again, this is very valuable equipment, and it's something that's destined for our military. So we are working with the Ukrainian consulate to be able to make all those arrangements, but I don't have the details. Yeah, Andrew.
You heard how this, I guess, the need for this particular equipment and how, it will be used and who will be using it.
Yeah, so my understanding is the Ukrainian military is looking for this equipment. My recollection is the original request was for like 75,000 pairs of body armor and helmets to be able to help equip all the volunteers they have in their country to help fight the Russian invasion. So we're doing our small part to be able to help equip folks who are signing up to be able to defend their homeland.
And so right now, some of these soldiers or these people are running around without anything.
So the quick then Andrew's question is, well, so are some of these people fighting without armor? I'd refer you to intelligence reports coming out of Ukraine with regard to that. But I can imagine if they're requesting 75,000, helmets and body armor units, that there are people right now fighting without body armor. Yeah.
Do you plan to continue collecting gear as the war continues?
The question is, do we plan on continuing collecting gear as the war continues? I would hope that this conflict can be brought to an end quickly, and therefore there wouldn't be the need for it. But we may be doing follow-on efforts as well, but it all just depends on the circumstances. Yeah, Andrew.
Isn't there any effort to kind of streamline all of these efforts to, kind of coordinate them so that, we could, maybe move quicker at all?
So the question was, Andrew was asking, is there been any effort to streamline these efforts so they can move quicker? Well, frankly, since we just started this effort last week on Wednesday, and today is Tuesday, or no, today's Wednesday, right? Today's Wednesday, so I think a week later, pulling this all together and getting it on a plane is actually a pretty fast turnaround time. Again, I think that if this turns into something that is going to be a longer-term effort, we would look to be pooling our resources with more than just the state of Iowa. We'd be looking to pool with other states as well. But with the need being urgent, we wanted to move faster to be able to get what we could collect over there in a hurry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant all the other, relief agent, the efforts to, to try to help all of those kind of coordinate and to move those along like you moved this one.
Oh, okay. So you're just talking about the other types of humanitarian relief. Obviously we have a lot of different types of organizations that have their own connections that address their own specific needs. So I think it's up to individuals to decide which organization is going to best suit their need. But, I think actually having a number of organizations being able to work on this and then have them work directly, for example, with the Ukrainian government to coordinate that relief is probably the best bet. I think that what we can do is support the organizations here and then let them work with the Ukrainian government to deliver that aid. Okay, other questions on this? Yeah.
How much of this is symbolic and how much of it, you hope saves lives?
So Andrew asks, how much of this is symbolic and how much of this will save lives? Well, I guarantee you that the Ukrainian soldier who is fighting with one of our helmets and body armor will not think this is symbolic in any way, that this will provide real protection. Again, as Captain Scott mentioned, even though the U.S. warranty on this is expired and we can't use them in law enforcement agencies, they still work. They will still stop shrapnel and bullets. And so this is a very real, tangible help for those fighters in Ukraine. But I do think it also emphasizes the importance of how Nebraskans stand with Ukraine on this horrible, unprovoked aggression, and that we got to stop this Russian war machine in its tracks, and we're doing our small part to be able to help do that. Yeah.
You talked about
Great.
possibly accepting Ukrainian refugees. Do you have any indication at this point as whether there's interest in that or whether folks might actually become remotely?
So the question was, I mentioned about accepting Ukrainian refugees, and do I have any indication with regard to that? We're continuing to work with our federal partners, and we'll continue to monitor it. But I've been told, and so you got to take it from that standpoint that I don't have any official documentation, is that most Ukrainians want to win this war and go home. They're not looking to come to the United States. They want to win the war and go home. All right. Anything else? All right, well, then I will dismiss you all. Thank you very much. Again, for great effort. And I'm sorry, I got to thank one more group. I got to thank the Department of Administrative Services, Jason Jackson as our director, and Amara Block, our general counsel, who worked to be able to help not only coordinate this, but make sure we were crossing our T's and dotting our I's with regard to pulling all this together and getting it to the proper place. So thank you very much, Amara, for your help. Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you to the folks from Assumption Ukrainian Church. We appreciate it. Thanks.